Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. I am excited to be back for another workflow session. First, let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to take this raw photo and I'm going to transform it into this photo. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I've asked on Facebook and Instagram, what do you guys want to see? What videos can I make that will help you? Most people said, can you please just process some photos? We just want to see your workflow. And I realized that, for a lot of people, they know how to drag sliders, they've learned how to import and export, they know how to use Lightroom, but they don't really know how to conceive an image and then have a structured workflow to create a result that they already had in mind. So I'm going to walk you through my workflow, my planning, all the steps that I would go through. I hope you guys don't just try to copy what I do, because then you're just going to have my style. What you should be aiming for is the bits of my style that you love and the bits of your style that you love and the bits of other photographers who inspire you. I want someone to be able to look at your photo and go, that's a John, or that's a Josh, or that's a Susie, or whatever your name is. I want that for you, and you're going to want that for you as well. So that's enough out of me. Let's get into the workflow. As always, guys, we're going to start here in Lightroom, and I'm going to take you through the EXIF data. It was taken at 1/80th of a second, f4, ISO 100, on a tripod at 41 millimeters. And I very clearly underexposed this image. I did that because I wanted to make sure that there was plenty of detail in the highlights. The other thing is my Sony a7R III has incredible dynamic range, and I'm really well aware of what its limits are. So I knew that this would work for this shot because I've used it enough. Important note, know your equipment is first and foremost rule of photography. So with that in mind, let's get into the workflow. Obviously, the first thing I have to do is bring out the shadows. I'm going to go ahead and say the first thing I always do is try to create a balanced exposure. You'll hear me talk about that in pretty much every video I do. That is step one every time. I want detail in my highlights and in my foreground. I don't want to blow anything out. I don't want to clip on the lights or dark, so let's go ahead and turn that on so we can visualize that. I'm going to boost the exposure up a bit here and bring the highlights down. Yeah, probably going to have to go all the way. My foreground's still looking a bit dark, so I'm going to come up to probably about a full stop. By pushing the highlights up that much, it looks like it added a bit of haze, so I'm going to try dehazing a little bit. And that's looking about right. I'm looking at this and I already know what I want. I want to take the viewer on a visual journey that starts at this trail. They follow along, they end up here, and their attention is on this really interesting, crazy rock formation that feels like Mordor, and I want the colors in the sky to reflect that as well. The colors get muted a lot with RAW. There was a bit more red and orange, especially in this area, that is not getting picked up yet, but my goal is to get the reds and the color back into that sky. And we will be able to do that while also having detail in the foreground. So let's go ahead and move along. I'm going to bring the whites up next. And I'm just always watching my highlights. I suspect I'm going to have some trouble with this one little section of cloud. I think it's going to try to blow out. It's just so much brighter here than anywhere else in the sky. Before I fix that, what I'm going to do is use a graduated filter. And I'm going to come down, and I want to affect the contrast of the sky. I think this needs a lot more drama behind this, because the rocks are dramatic. The sky right now feels flat to me. If you haven't already seen my video on the 5 hidden features of local adjustments, I'm going to link to it. It's going to be somewhere up here in the top left corner. I go through, one of the things is the range mask luminance that I take you through. So if this is confusing what I'm about to do, click that video, cue it up, and watch that. If you already are well aware of what luminance masks are for, then great. If not, you might want to go watch that video first. With that in mind, I'm going to continue. I'm going to select this bit of sky that's kind of in the mid and let that grab my luminance mask. And now I'm just going to boost the exposure. And I I'm probably going to go all the way up. Yeah, I like having this cloud dark and these blues deeply blue and this color. I mean, just that one touch really brought the colors out. Now, the only thing I'm seeing is it does look like it's bleeding into these formations more than I wish it was. If I turn on my luminance mask, it's not on there heavy, but it does appear to be affecting them, which is unfortunate. So we're going to have to fix that. I'm probably going to do that at the end with a brush. For now, I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to continue processing the rest of the image, and I'll come back and clean that up last. I don't have to move the blacks at all right now. I might actually boost them, which I rarely do, but in this case, yeah, I'm going to actually bring those up a touch. And the one thing I almost always do is push the lights down here in the tone curve, because what that does is it really gives some glow and aura to your sky and to the bright parts of the image. without impacting the darker parts. Again, I love contrast. You'll notice my style involves a ton of contrast. I'm always trying to get that. So here I'm trying to bring the sky that just got a bit too bright back down. I like that it's bright, but it's looking unnatural compared to the rest, and that's already a bit better. Now, one thing I'm definitely cognizant of is I'm getting some pretty bad haloing here. So I'm going to have to fix that, which I would probably end up doing in Photoshop. I'll try to do this in Lightroom if I can for you guys, but honestly, this looks like a Photoshop fix to me, and that might have to be a different video. Just suffice to say, there are tools we have available to us to fix that. That happened, by the way, because of my graduated filter. By me pushing the contrast that aggressively, you'll watch that go away basically as I come down. But I love the contrast. I love what it did to the rest of the image, so I'm happy to go fix that later on. That's pretty common to get some haloing around the edges. I know I'm going to need to lighten this trail and bring your attention here because that's my goal. So I'm going to put a radial filter that kind of spans this central area. I love radial filters. I just find the feathering on them looks so natural, and you can mold the light really, really effectively. So I'm going to push the whites up here. Again, I'm just trying to brighten that area, and I'm very aware that it's bleeding up too far here, so we're going to fix that next. For now, let's just try to get that better lit without looking unnatural. I'm going to actually just brush this bit out that's gone too far. That's the easiest way to fix it, because honestly, I don't want it coming into my sky at all, or even these rocks, really. So that's easy. I'm just going to kind of brush around the outsides. Again, if you didn't know about this feature, you should watch the 5 secrets of local adjustments, because I talk about that as well. There's a lot of things in here that you probably don't even know you have at your disposal, and improving that toolkit is going to be a massive help to you. You're going to run into situations where you're not sure what to do at first, and once you have this really expanded toolkit, I feel like there's just nothing you can't do in Lightroom. The next thing I'm going to do, I don't like the colors right now. It doesn't feel like sunset to me. Even though it was sort of a pinkish red sunset, it's feeling very blue. So I'm going to use my split toning. And I usually work somewhere between 20 and 40 personally. 20 is kind of a reddish orange. 40 is more of a warmish orange. So I'm going to start with my warmish orange color. And that looks already a bit better. I don't know if I'm going to want that closer to red. So let's see what red looks like. Somewhere down around 15. That's maybe just a bit too pink. No, maybe not. I kind of like that actually. That's that sort of fire reddish sky I was going for. I'm going to leave that pretty aggressive. I think that looks cool. Now I'm going to use my vignette effect. So I do this all the time in my photos. You'll see this a lot. I just kind of go across the middle pretty wide and leave a lot of space on the top and bottom. In this particular case, I'm going to leave more on the top. Go invert so that it's only affecting the outside, and this is going to sort of act as a vignette. It's going to act as a spotlight a bit. It's going to force your attention to the middle where I want it. So again, I said that I want the visual journey to come down this trail and land here. So this needs to be the brightest part of the image, and I need to darken the outsides. And this vignette does a good job with that. I'm also going to play with the temperature. I'm not sure exactly. I think warming it up just feels a bit more natural to me. And at this point, I'm going to brush in that trail that I keep talking about. Let's brighten that up. Your eyes are going to follow bright, and your eyes are going to follow contrast. So being that this trail is about to be bright and have some contrast, we're going to naturally gravitate towards it. Also, our eyes naturally find lines, which is why if you have a line, whether you want it to be or not, it will be a leading line. And your job as a photographer is to make sure it leads somewhere. So I'm just kind of brushing in here. I want it to be bright enough where your eyes are drawn to it, but not so bright that you notice it looks processed. That's always going to be my goal. Let's get to the photo again. I don't like the yellowish shade of the grass, so I'm going to push that a bit towards the greens. Yeah, I think the green just, I don't know, to me that's more pleasing. And I'm going to boost the luminance so that that grass is a bit brighter. There we go. That already looks a lot better to me too. I am thinking I'm going to lower the blue luminance. I do this often to really create contrast in the sky. And I think I like it again here. It just seems to bring out especially look right here, what it's doing with the contrast of this pinkish orange. It's really creating some nice contrast there. So I like that a lot. Let's see, I'm just working my way down the list. Masking, I usually leave at 40. With this particular camera, and then I just make sure, I should have said sharpening. I'm going to turn my mask on now, and I want to get it to the point where it's not sharpening my sky at all. Somewhere about 50 should be good. I always just remove chromatic aberrations, and I'm going to look at this on and off. I think I like it better off. I don't think that bevels. It's sort of pulling the center towards the viewer a little bit when the profile corrections is on. Oh, maybe I do like it better on. It's close. You may have seen this in other videos. I always push the blue primary color saturation just to see what it looks like. And I find that a lot of the times it's just a much more pleasing way to add vibrancy to your photo. And in fact, I'm seeing that again here. I think the first attempt was a bit too heavy, but somewhere around 25 looks pretty good. The blue looks oversaturated to me, but the other colors look good. The reds and the oranges and the yellows here and the greens, those all look good to me. So I'm just going to come down and lower the blue saturation. And now in terms of the image at this point, I really like the way it looks. It's much too dark. So that's going to be my last challenge here, since I've already pushed my shadows up as far as I can go. I'm going to try pushing them up here and see how that goes. But yeah, that makes it look hazy and awkward. That's not going to work. We're going to have to get really up close and personal with this one. I'm going to increase the exposure a bit more. I think it's mostly, yeah, just that little push helps a lot. I don't like that I've lost this area. This is getting a bit too bright, but everything else looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and try to balance that out with a simple radial. I've already got one there, but I don't know. I'd like to just make more, apparently. Maybe it's not the most elegant workflow, but it works for me. Let's just bring the exposure back down here. Somewhere in there is good. Yeah, that looks about right. Now again, this haloing is getting really bad along the edge, so that'll be one of the last things I fix. I'm going to go ahead and brush. Here's what I'm going to do with these rocks. I don't think we need to brighten all of it. I think we just need to brighten the edges, because you can see that they're actually getting a bit of light on the sides. I want to bring that out more, and I think if we do that well, then it's going to be all right to the visual experience that the rest of the the rest of the rocks are dark. So let's try just brushing and bringing up the exposure, and then adding a bit of warmth to that as if the sun's touching it. There we go. That looks much better already. I'm going to do a similar thing sort of just on the edge of this one and down here. Basically anywhere that the sun was sort of coming in from the side. I think the spots getting some sunlight, bringing that out, creating that contrast is going to work pretty well. I'm going to do a similar thing with this whole section of rock down here. This looks like it would be out in the open and getting a bit more sunlight than it is right now, compared to, like, say, the grass around it. So I'm just going to brush in here and try to bring the detail out. Let's try the whites. Yeah, it looks a bit better. And the exposure, it's just a smidge. And I'm going to warm that up, because sunlight is usually nice and warm. That looks a lot better to me already. I'm not sure about you guys. You know, you might have wish I'd stopped 10 minutes ago. Maybe it's looking good to you. I think it's basically there minus the final touches. So what I mean is the overall exposure and the feeling is there, and now this is where it would take like a long time to get this ready for print. I would probably take this over to Photoshop at this point and do a lot of little changes. I'm going to try to do them in Lightroom instead. The photo has what I want. Your eyes take you down the trail and up to here. There's some nice soft light on the rocks. All the action is in the center here. I do think we could vignette a bit more effectively. So I'm going to do another one, but a bit smaller this time. I'm going to really focus in attention on the center. I'm going to use a heavier feather and invert it so it's only affecting the outsides, and I'm going to bring that exposure down. Now that's going to be too dark for some of you, but you may have noticed that my photos tend to have really bright brights, really dark darks. That's where the drama comes from. And similar, this time I'm going to actually increase the brightness of the middle just using a radial filter. Now if we want to see the before and after, because I'm not certain I like what I just did there, I'm going to go into my history here on the sides, and I'm going to go to before I added that radial filter, and after. I do like it. I know it's not for everybody, but that vignette effect really brings our attention here, and I can just imagine myself standing there. So the last thing I'm going to do is try to fix this haloing that's been there the whole time. I would usually do this in Photoshop. What I'm going to attempt for you in Lightroom is just using a simple brush tool, and I'm going to brush just along this ridge. My auto masking is on, and what's happening here is that the contrast has created a white haloing or fringing just on the edge. So the easiest attempt is just bring the whites all the way down and paint along that ridge. Yeah, that looks a lot better to me. So that's it. from here, if you know, it's a piece of clay. Some of you would have kept molding for years to come, and some of you would have stopped 2 hours ago. But hopefully you picked up some tips, some tricks, and kind of have a sense of how I go about processing my images, what goes through my mind, and what strategies I have. Take a deep breath, guys. You are done. I hope that was helpful for you. Again, this is how I process my photos, and I don't want you to just try to copy that method bit by bit, because I don't do the same thing every time. I think if you take anything away, it should be know what your vision is to some extent, know what feeling you're going for, and start to understand what the sliders do. That comes with practice. Guys, I hope you had fun. I know I did. Leave any helpful comments in the comments. Subscribe if you like this stuff, and if you have an idea for what you want me to create next, I am so open to that. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one.